Armada Book 2 Chapter 9 The Trigger Part 1. Andrew went straight to Vicky, who was just waking up, and told her about the meeting. He has 39 days, he told her. I guess fate is clearer now. One of the problems is keeping the secret. We have to prove to the scientific community that the prediction for a nova was based on some science, so they will not trace it to Stephanie. Vicky said. Stephanie predicted that already and told us Godinin has the theoretical explanation for the nova to happen. My problem is keeping her safe, her family safe. If she's here in Planet Los Angeles, she would be very safe. So when will you leave? Vicky asked, holding Andrew's hand. Immediately. Olive, can you assemble GX1 for me at the back ASAP? Tell Billy to beam over, if not a hologram would do. Invite Tonin and Gantley if they are available. Also, tell the cooks to bring some food for the guys and put them on the table at the back. Vicky went over to Adam's room and she saw the baby still sleeping. The nanny was asleep as well. She kissed Adam lightly and went out of the room to get dressed for work. Andrew was also changing to his GX1 uniform. Before going out to the backyard, Andrew went over to kiss Vicky and get some of the coffee she had just brewed. When Andrew got out, the team was complete except for Billy, who appeared as a hologram. The food was already laid out and the cooks have just left. The team has started to help themselves. Andrew started by having Olive show the star that will turn nova in 39 days, then the planets. Tonin appeared as a hologram, then Gantley appeared as well. And you know this because? Billy asked. I will tell you later. But right now we need to lay out an evac plan. I can spare 520 hop outposts right now. If we launch all our ships, we can tow all of them at once, deploy as we go along and arrive at the target destination in 20 days. Olive, can you please show us the target area and the compromised planets again? The outpost can be lined up 20 wide and branched off into 3 areas, 10 for the max, then 3 for the intis, and the Norsets will have 7 lines they can go through. Tony said. I can deploy 1,200 ships and take the max, Norsets, and intis all in at once. But I would be there in 21 days. Gantley said. I now have 100 ships under me. Why don't I tow some 60 outposts out of existing lines and create a double line at least towards the compromised planets? I can finish deploying these in 5 days, maybe 6. I can then deploy 500,000 max through this single line and tag all those that needs to be tagged. They probably would need another 5 days to do the job. My problem would be the clones. I would need the clone transport carts for them. Billy said. You can just tag the clone tanks, and when my ships arrive in 23 days we can beam them up and hook them up again to the power sources. I can bring 1,200 ships and equip them with clone hookups. The only issue here is that the clones will occupy a large part of our ships. I will then be able to take in less refugees. Tonin said. I think Billy's quicker deployment response is the way to go. Now Billy, if you can deploy some more outposts to double the 2 lines you intended to set up earlier, that would be a good buffer. Your ships would just have to go back and forth to get the outpost and deploy them. Andrew said. We would need a staging planet to take on the refugees safe from the effects of the nova. I will talk to the council so they can designate at least 2 planets to take in the refugees temporarily. Gadden said. Godinin appeared as a hologram. I heard there is a meeting going on here. Andrew exclaimed, Welcome to my backyard, Godinin. Before you guys talk further, what you guys called a nova is actually a supernova. There are actually 2 more inti planets further to the right of the intis and 3 more mac planets further to the lower left that the effects of the nova may still be dangerous. Olive, please show these planets and simulate the exploding star. Godinin started. Olive showed the star in the middle and the planets Godinin was concerned about. Then the group saw the star explode and the planets Godinin mentioned were enveloped at the fringes by the explosion. The supernova explosion from this size star will incinerate planets within 5 Ly and render inhabitable those within 20 Ly. The planets Godinin mentioned are at 30 Ly or so away, and all the inhabitants will die and the planet will probably be left uninhabitable for millions of years. The population of these other planets are 40 million max and 10 million intis. Olive explained. That sucks. Eric quipped. Godinin faced Eric. You know what sucks even more? I scanned the star and it's a fairly large one. It may have a high probability of exploding based on data from my initial battery of scans. Now I intend to go nearer and deploy probes into the star and see with a little bit more certainty what kind and when the explosion will take place. So what sucks is the probes may show that the 39 days may be earlier by 3 or later by 2 days. That means the safe time frame is really 35 days max. Finally, when the supernova occur, I would suggest that all ships be more than 40 Ly away, at least. But you know, for scientists like me, it would be an exciting event to wait after deploying all our probes and see the progression of a supernova from its very core. That is why I am deploying more than 1,000 scientists for this event. There will also be more than 600 video probes at various distances so we can record the progression of the nova up to 1 Ly. I already told them my instruments predicted a supernova in 39 days, so they think I'm smart. Okay Billy, I think you should double of the initial 2 lines you planned in the first place. Wait, I said double of the 2, right? Right. And you would have to mobilize more MAC taggers, say twice the number you mentioned. Andrew said. I think that if I arrive with 1,200 ships and Gantley arrives with another 1,200 and Andrew and Tony deploys the 500 outposts, we will be able to clear the planets. We only have 10 days max to work and leave immediately. Now if Billy can tag all the population, we can just beam them out when we arrive. Tonin said. So it's doable then. I would, however, suggest that we give more leeway. When both Tonin and Gantley arrive, they must finish the job in 5 days and leave. The last refugees must pass through the outposts to minimize risk to the Armada. Andrew said. It's better to be safe. Gantley said. I agree. Tonin said. Bynaton told me to remind you guys to take care of the flora and fauna of those planets. Evacuate them as well. Godanen said. Like in Noah's Ark. Ellie said, and proceeded to tell the story of how Noah evacuated the animals ahead of a very big storm and flooding. Also, I will leave 200 of my ships under Tony here, and I will take 50 ships to the Marindy Galaxy and tow 50 outposts. I could be there in 5 days. I want to try to get those guys involved with the trigger problem. I think we can use the real Marinties as infiltrators to gather intel and tag the Max. I intend to go to the triggers area and plant those guys way ahead. I also intend to have the Marinties kidnap several of the compromised Marinties for Ellie to study, so we would know how to deal with the rest of the compromised Marinties. Then we may even be able to capture one of the robots for us to study. So while Bynaton is talking, the Marinties are stalking the Max and tagging them. Andrew said. So we will be deploying the outposts to connect the Marinty planet to the network. Ellie said. Yes, and we would like to deploy the extra outposts to connect the Inky lines towards the triggers planets. Andrew added. I would be interested in looking at the robots the trigger created and the mind infestation. I would work with Ellie aboard her ship in the field for these projects, and I will bring my top robotics and medical scientists with me. Godanen said. It would be an honor to work with you, Godanen. Ellie said. This way, by the time we are done with the evac, we shall have gathered enough intel to react properly. We may need all our ships, drones, and attack sabers. Maybe even some outposts. Andrew said. We would definitely have to redeploy the outposts towards the triggers planets after our evac work. They are always handy to have in the field. Tony said. Sounds like a good plan to me. Let's do it. Tonin said. I will move as fast as I can to be at the location. In the meantime, if you don't mind Billy, have your ship report on your progress to us. Gantley said. I will send out updates to all of you guys. We will send out updates to you all on our progress with the Marinties and infiltration as well. Andrew added. The hologram said their goodbyes and vanished. The rest remained just long enough for them to finish their food. Andrew left for the Marinty planet after lunch. Each ship towed an outpost ship, some 2, and when they reached the last outpost in the network on the way to the Marinty planet, they started deploying the outpost in proper intervals. His group reached the planet in 5 days after deploying 15 outposts. They parked 2 Ly away near the capital planet. Olive, can you look for Bhaskar and Redonter please? Get Ellie, Gadden, and Eric, I want to talk to them. Andrew, Bhaskar and Redonter are at a meeting in the palace. When Ellie, Gadden and Eric arrived, Andrew told them he would like to talk to the Marinty leaders and get them to assign their best spies for the trigger operations. Olive beamed the group to the palace meeting. Hi Bhaskar, Redonter, how are you all doing? Andrew greeted them. Bhaskar and Redonter stood up and approached Andrew and his team. They shook hands and the Marinties seemed genuinely glad to see Andrew and his group. Redonter held Andrew's shoulder and, it's been a long time. I was not able to go to your child's party because we just had our elections and the elected council elected me as the supreme leader. It's okay Redonter, Bhaskar and his group were there anyway. So what do we owe your visit? Bhaskar asked. Andrew started, we need your help. Remember you told me once that the Marinty army were all gone from the planet we dumped them to? Well, we found them. Redonter dismissed the council members and told them to meet later. He invited Andrew and his team to sit around the council table. Andrew related what happened to the Marinty army and that the infection may not be reversible. That is why we need your best spies to infiltrate the group and get hold of a few Marantais so they can see if the effects can be reversed. Then he related the story of the Trigger and his robot army. Andrew continued, I would also like to take hold of some of the robots and study them and see how to best deal with them. Then he told them about the Max. As much as they were our enemies before, now we must help them because they are now our army. Bhaskar said. That is true, Bhaskar. Bhaskar here is now in charge of our interplanetary ships. We already have built 73 ships and building more since the last time you were here. They are now bigger and thanks to the Inkeys, use the advance engines and power sources. Recently we were trained by the Inkeys on infiltration and hacking. Bhaskar here has the first teams of spies numbering around 25,000. I believe we should put them to good use. Redonter said. I agree completely, Supreme Leader. Bhaskar said. I also placed outpost hops from the end of the network 1 BLY away to your planet. Now you can go anywhere in the hop network and trade. Andrew said. Redonter exclaimed, it's about time. We have been asking Rodin to do this for some time now. We only got the hop outpost ships 2 weeks ago. They are ships we got from an enemy the Norsets defeated. They fixed them up and now we can deploy these. With your permission we will put a TP in the palace and leave some Max to install several more TPs in your planet so you can go to the network. Gadden explained. That's good, you are most welcome to start immediately. Redonter said. Olive, can you beam the TP team here? Andrew said. We do not have much time. If you can assemble the spy groups, we would like to leave immediately. Eric said. I can have them ready to leave tomorrow. I would not be going with you but I will assign my second in command, Commander Ryester, to supervise them. Bhaskar said. Redonter added, Commander Ryester is a good commander. I am sure he will serve you well, Andrew. A Mac TP team beams down with a TP equipment. They asked Redonter where he wants to put the TP and Redonter instructed them to put it in the middle of a large hall beyond the door to the left. Andrew, we also need to get hold of the plasma cannons and small arms your people are making. Bhaskar said. You can get them once you go through the hops all the way to the planets that make them. You should also trade scientists so you can help your people with whatever they need. Ellie said. Redonter explained, Rodin has been very kind to us. He has provided us with his scientists to teach our scientists and they have learned a lot. That's good to know. Can you assign some of your local scientists to Ellie so they can help us deal with the infestation? They could learn a lot and contribute to the solutions? Andrew asked. Redonter nodded, good idea, Andrew. I will have my people get ready to leave immediately. Bhaskar excused himself to talk to his assistants. Redonter invited the group to tour the palace and the city. After a few hours Redonter invited them for a feast in the palace. In the feast they met the council heads, the new commanders and some of their assistants. The commanders wanted to provide an army contingent and even suggested that they are willing to send 10 of their ships to help Andrew. Eric and Gadden supported the idea since they might be useful down the road. Andrew accepted but repeated Eric's call for immediate departure. The next day Andrew saw the Marantais going through the hops in large numbers. After a lot of insistence, he and the Marantais left for the Trigger's planets 8 days away. Andrew looked at the 10 ships and they were twice larger than a Vinta. In fact, it almost looked like the oversized old-style Vinta. Ellie was surprised when the Marinti ships cloaked as they did. And when they flew, their speed matched the speed of the Armada ships. Along the way, Eric briefed the spies on the possible tasks at hand. Since they were trained by the Inkeys, they picked up the new tasks immediately. He showed the army contingent the new drones and how to operate them. The Marantais were amazed that the ships carried 4 alien species and had their tasks laid out. Their only issue was they had to adapt to a common food the mess halls were serving. It looked to them that the food was a mix of everything the 4 species would accept to eat. The menu did not include their food. They had to stop by a hop ship to get their food supplies courtesy of Redonter. After several days, the ship stopped and parked behind a very large planet. They have also deployed 18 hop outposts along their path. The team members all beamed into Andrew's bridge. Andrew started, Gadden, Eric deploy the hop outposts from here up to near the Trigger's planet. He might have some long-range scanners so I don't want to show him our ships coming. The hop outpost is smaller and if we deploy one at a time, they would not be too obvious. We are 750 MLY away, we would need at least 10 outpost ships and we can finish deploying them in 2 days. Eric explained. I believe we should plot a line where the outposts are very near planets so they are more invisible. Gadden said. I agree with Gadden, we still have 17 outposts so it may take a longer route but we would be more clandestine. Olive plot a hop course towards the Trigger's planets as Gadden suggested and have the outpost commanders to launch immediately. Make them follow the same path so if ever they are scanned the enemy will only show one outpost ship. Have the last 2 outposts bring a dozen probes and deploy them among the 3 planets. Andrew said. Sir, I got word from Gotanen that he would be joining us in 4 days. He also said that Binatan has left their galaxy and is now headed straight for the Trigger's planets. He would be there in 2 days. Ellie said. Their timing is perfect. The enemy scans would be focused on Binatan and less on us. Andrew said. So the plan is to deploy the Marantais and have them tag a few robots and some Marantais for us to look at. If the tags we placed on the Marinti army before are still working, we don't need to tag them again. In the Mac planets we may have to deploy our Macs to tag the Macs on the ground. Eric concluded. The targets are expected to be very violent and would have tracer beacons on them. What my staff did was to create a time warp field to form a large box so when the robots are beamed into the box they are in effect frozen in time. The Marantais would be beamed into the same boxes since they may be infectious. We were able to create 10 boxes and maybe another 10 in 3 days. Ellie said. We only need 1 robot so you don't have to create more of those boxes. Once we get our subjects we leave the area. We will leave the 10 Marinti ships and 2 of our ships. The spies on the ground would have to be in the 3 planets. The Macs should be able to tag all the Macs on the ground before we leave. Andrew said. In 3 days the last 2 outposts deployed their probes around the 3 planets. In a few hours all the ships were receiving videos and ground scans. Andrew started, I want to know if they see us. If they can see the spies and taggers on the ground. Apparently, they have not. A small cloaked hop outpost ship unmoving in space is hard to see at 60 mly away. Even the spies report that they are moving freely and nobody seems to notice them. Ellie explained. Where are their ships? Andrew asked. Olive answered, most of the ships are concentrated in the main planet where the Trigger is. We can beam the Macs and tag the engines. 1 Mac 1 ship. A quick in and out operation to keep risk to bare minimum. Eric said. Okay, 1 Mac 1 ship and a quick in and out. Commence immediately. Andrew agreed. The robots that we intend to tag are in the other planet where the Marantais are concentrated. Eric said. Tell them to tag 1 robot? Olive, are the tags we put on the Marantais still working? Yes Andrew, and the signals from the Marinti tags are still strong. Okay, move the Mac taggers ahead and tag the Mac prisoners. Eric explained, there will be 20,000 Mac, Marinti and Inki taggers that will be deployed. We expect the tagging to be finished in 5 days. The deployment will be delayed by the movement through the hop outposts. Deploy them once we get the robots and Marinti subjects. I want to make sure the taggers will not be compromised. But tell them to move further afield so they are on standby. Andrew said. They are organized into teams and the Mac target areas are pretty much mapped out into grids and designated to teams so they will work very fast. Eric said. The video shows that there are several types of robots. I think we can concentrate on the 5 designs that looks more aggressive and that can fit in the box. Olive, tell the taggers to tag these 5 types of robots. Tell them to choose the robots that are further away from packs. Ellie said. After a few minutes, Olive spoke but not looking at Andrew. Andrew, the robots are ready to be beamed. The boxes are ready to capture them. Ok Olive. Beam in the Marantais first then move them back to Ellie's ship. Then beam the robots in. But before you do that, tell the spies to take cover, we might stir the leaves around and raise an alarm. Andrew and his teams were watching the videos and the subjects were moving with no sense of alarm. Okay, beam in the Marantais now. Andrew told Olive. There seems to be no alarm set off. Eric noted. Okay, move our subjects to Ellie's ship. Move the Mac and Inki taggers to the planets with Mac prisoners. Andrew said. Ellie, Gotanen and his scientists will be arriving at your ship in 2 hours. Olive said. Good timing. Andrew said. They are all monitoring our movements Andrew, so they act accordingly. Olive said as if predicting Andrew's thoughts. The Marantais are on the way to my ship. Olive, you can go ahead and beam the robots in. Ellie said. As soon as you're ready, beam the robots in. Andrew said. In a few minutes, the robots were beamed into the boxes where they were frozen in time. They all watched the videos as the robots were beamed in. After a few minutes, they sighed a careful sign of relief. There was no reaction from the other robots and it seemed no alarm was raised. There seems to be no alarm raised. That's strange. Ellie said. Olive, tell all the ships to get ready to leave for the supernova area as soon as Gotanen gets on board. Tell Captain Ono and Colonel Phillips to remain with 2 other ships of their choosing and report on the situation. Tell Commander Ryester to report to Colonel Phillips and have half of the Marinti ships remain and report to Colonel Phillips. Tell the other half and all the Marinti scientists to come with us. Can you tell General Linda Bourne to come over please? Yes, Andrew. Olive answered. I would deploy a dozen more probes and put them further out like 30 mly. Ellie said. While you're at it, deploy the last 4 remaining outposts around the 3 planets but within beaming distance maybe 70 to 90 mly and place them near planets if you can find one near. General Linda Bourne beamed in with Keelmill. Jenny beamed in. Sir, Captain Ono has chosen Captain Tiffany Hyru and Captain Jesse Labrador of the Canadian contingent to remain with us. After the taggers finish their jobs with the MAC prisoners which we estimate would be in 5 days, would you want us to tag the robots? Ellie, what do you think? Andrew asked. Jenny, the tags are lodged in tissues and are very small. The robots do not have tissues for the tags to lodge into. If we shoot them with the tags might come off or wash off. Ellie said. We then must tag them where the tags will not be disturbed like under the arms or in the joints. Jenny answered. That could work for lack of a better alternative. Ellie make note to make high-performance super sticky tags for non-porous objects. Andrew said. Do multiple tags on one subject that way if one gets removed some would remain. Try to lodge them inside but don't risk getting too close to the robots and risk blowing our cover. Ellie suggested. We will also tag their engines and power sources and major weapons. We also would be deploying the video probes in strategic areas. Jenny said. Yes, but do not open them up and have them start transmission, they might track the transmission beams to our probes and later to our outposts. Ellie noted. Yes, the probes are far so their transmission is not around their area. Open the probe transmission when we start an open engagement. Tell the taggers to be very careful please. Andrew said. Yes, Ellie, General Man. Jenny said and beamed out. So what can I do, sir? Linda asked looking at Andrew. I want you to take 3 ships and go all the way to the Munoan star system. Gather intel and see what we need to do. Take extra probes with you. Pass by the Inky galaxies and pick up some hop outposts, pull them out of the lines if you need to and deploy them from the last Norset hop outpost towards the Munoan star system. Olive, how many hops would Linda need from the last Norset outpost to the Munoans? Andrew asked. The last Norset hop outposts is here. The Munoans are here. That's about 2.5 bly, so if you need the outposts to be spaced at 70 mly, you would need 35 at least for a single line. Olive said. Olive, tell Tony to have 35 hop outposts fly over to these areas so Linda need not tow any hop outpost or pull anything from the lines. Yes, Andrew. So I can leave now, sir? Linda asked. Yes, be careful, it's going to be a long trip. Andrew said. Godenan and his group are in Ellie's ship. Olive reported. Okay, we should be getting there now. Ellie said and disappeared. The team met with Godenan and his party. They both looked at the robots and Marantais suspended in time. I would assume all these robots send a location beacon and a regular signal to their control center. This large box is a good idea, Ellie. Godenan said. Thank you, Godenan. Now we should go over to the Inky galaxies where Roden has prepared a staging area for the expected encounter and for our science teams to look at these. The Inky scientists are also very interested to look at these robots. Godenan said. Okay, Ellie, you can go ahead and go to the staging area. Take the 5 Marindi ships with their scientists with you. We would have to go to the supernova area to help out. Okay, Olive, are the ships ready? Andrew asked. Andrew, I have plotted a course where we will be cutting through this area so we expect to arrive there in 12 days. Awaiting your orders. Olive, let's head over to the supernova area. While we are on our way, tell all the crew to look over the evacuation reports and videos so we are prepared and understand the lay of the land when we arrive. 7 days later, Ellie and her group arrived at the Inky planet of Pinyatamar, which was the nearest planet towards the Triggers area, which is 2 bly away. Roden has prepared a facility for the scientists to look at the robots and the infected Marantais. The scientists on Ellie's ship beamed down to where the Inkys were waiting. Roden was there to welcome the group. Welcome, Ellie, Godenan, this is Bakamana, our head scientist in this quarter of the Inky galaxies. She has prepared 6 large research labs to study the 5 robots and the Marantais. She will show you around and her team will work with you to understand the robots and the infected Marantais. I know you all want to start working, so I would get out of your way. And with that, Roden excused himself and disappeared. The science team wasted no time in beaming down the subjects to the labs where Bakanima wanted them to. The Marantais were beamed in a special lab with remote operating capabilities and where the test subjects were fully contained to prevent the infection from getting out if at all. Then they agreed on the team assignments to look at the robots and the Marantais. They were very careful to find out the beacon and command transmission ranges and jam it. After they have identified the transmission ranges and created jamming signals for these, they started reducing the time warp field to enable them to work on the extremities of the robots. The Norset, Max and an Inky scientists concluded from the design and construction of the robots that they were not at all using advanced technology but technologies prevailing at the time the Trigger left the Norset world. Even the metal used was not the new Norset metal their ships have. They use lasers as their primary weapons, although their power source was much more than enough for its needs. While the main body of the robots were still suspended in time, they scanned them repeatedly to reveal even the smallest detail. The robot extremities were subject to more detailed analysis. After they cut the extremities off, they opened them and analyzed each part. They also realized that the 5 different robots they got have the same inside technology and 3 designs were actually older version of the other 2. "Ellie, we can construct better robots than this one with the technology we have," Godinin commented. "If the enemies were the Marantais, these robots would work, but if the enemies are robots also, these would not last." Ellie said, "Why don't we construct the same design robots but using the more advanced metal we use? Then we outfit them with plasma weapons." "Ellie, I believe your ship has one very large formulator and several medium-sized ones which we can use to create the parts," Bakamina said. "Yes, I have. We can do that and create some prototypes," Ellie said. "And once we approve the prototypes we can send the production information to the Norset Galaxy so they can mass-produce these," Godinin said. So after a few days they already have a course of action and have decided on one type of robot that is based on human physiology. But then they had doubts from their Armada experience whether it would be wise to create them since the need was not at all large. Meanwhile the teams working on the Marantais, which included the Marinti scientists, were also making progress. They realized the infection is not transmittable once they grow inside the hosts. They integrated themselves as brain tissues. What fascinated the scientists was how the tissues transmit commands to and from the attached device. They also realized the attached device transmits the same signal as the beacon and command transmissions. The jamming unit devised by the other group came in very handy. Once the jamming was in place, they unfroze the time and removed the device from the front of the Marinti. Once removed, the Marinti was refrozen and the device refrozen and beamed into Ellie's ship. When they unfroze the Marinti without the device, they showed signs of life but appear very dumb. It was like they could not think on their own. They compared data from a Marinti scientist as test subject and the infected Marinti. The Marinti scientists were quick to explain Marinti physiology to the other scientists so they can analyze the issues in the right direction. In order to find out if the process is reversible, all the scientists realized they must understand how they work inside the Marinti body. Several days later, Rodin appeared before Godinin and Ellie. "Hey guys, I would be heading to the viewing area for the Nova. Do you want to join me? I would not miss this out in a million years." Godinin said. "Yes, let's go. Nobody gets to wait for a star to explode." Ellie said. "I would love to go but someone must be in charge of our project," Bakamina said. They all left for the Nova area through the hops.